everybody, I'm Scott, and welcome to the Shelfware Podcast. Today I have Noah Clemens back with us to talk about 11/22/63. That's right. And Noah Clemens is from the BookTube channel, Everyone Who Reads It Must Converse.
That's
Hello,
right.
Noah.
Hey, Scott.
Hey, man.
How are you doing, bro?
Doing really good.
Very cool. Another awesome read with
heck
you,
yeah.
brother.
The last time that we were here, we were talking about Hyperion, all 4 novels in that whole series. We did 2 podcasts, and man, that was a lot of fun. And here we are for more. 11/22/63 by Stephen King.
Back for more. I can't get enough with you, Scott.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, fun. Very, very cool. So what we'll do, we'll synopsize this thing really quickly in a non-spoilery way, and then we're going to jump right in because there's a lot to talk about in here. It's a big old book, 850 pages or so, published in 2011. And it is about a time traveler who is convinced to go back in time. It wasn't his idea originally, but we'll talk about that. Convinced to go back in time to prevent the JFK assassination in Dallas, Texas. Right. Yep. Which that's what the title is, the November 22nd, 1963, which is when it took place. And the time travel has rules, like time travel books do. But this fella has a portal. Every time he walks through it, he goes back to September 9, 1958. And he can stay as long as he wants. He ages while he's there. He goes back to his regular time. And only 2 minutes have elapsed when he returns. No matter how long.
2 minutes every time.
Every time. No matter how long he was in 1958 or moving forward in time, he could stay 20 years and then go back, and only 2 minutes has passed in 2011. Right. And then the problem, though, is every time that he does go back, it resets. So anything
it starts again.
Yeah.
In 1958 there.
Right. So September 9, 1958 is the same every time he goes back there. And then his changes branch that reality off, and we'll talk more about that. But whatever he changes from there forward becomes the new reality.
Right. And whatever he changed before is null and void.
Right. So that's the setup.
That's the setup. There's the backdrop.
That's the setup. So, in a non-spoilery way, that's the setup. But this book is it is one of Stephen King's best novels, in my opinion. Definitely the best of his recent ones. Again, he wrote it in 2011. I just loved it. And there's not a lot of horror in this novel. We'll throw that out there in this period. It's really about life. This character, he goes back in time again to 1958, and then if he's going to try to stop the JFK assassination, he lives in that time all the way up to 1963, where he's got to do his attempt.
Right. He's got 5 years.
Yeah, so he lives that 5 years, and that 5 years is this novel.
That's right.
A lot of it, yeah.
And I'll second what you said about it being a very enjoyable Stephen King novel. Mm-hmm. One of the strongest and most enjoyable that I've read, and I've read a lot.
Right, I've read a lot too. I calculated when we started reading it, and I've read 30 Stephen King novels. This is 31. So that's a lot of reading over the years. Cool.
Yeah, very cool.
Right.
My kind of guy.
Absolutely. So cool. I don't know if we want to say anything else about it in the non-spoilery section, because
I'll just say before we go to spoilers that when it comes down to it, Stephen King does what Stephen King does here, and like you said, what he does is there's a setup, there's a setting, there's a very interesting setting, but what this is about is the characters and what they go through, and then you fall in love with these people. These characters that he's created. I'm reminded of like The Stand, that kind of thing where, you have this apocalyptic setting, but really what is going on is about these really human characters, and Stephen King does a great job with a smaller amount of characters in this book than The Stand, but it's a chunker. So I mean, he really works it out, and it's great.
Yeah, and I would say it's approximately twice the size of Salem's Lot, which is my favorite Stephen King novel, and this novel reminded me of that. Not because there's vampires, but because he talks a lot about a small town, living in a small town. It felt that way to me with, the main character is a guy who's a teacher
Right,
and a writer, and that's the
right.
same as Salem's Lot. So there's some similarities there that I found, and yeah, it was nice.
Very cool.
Yep.
And also, before we go to spoilers, you don't have to read it to get this thing. There is a Hulu series that I have
Oh
not
yeah.
seen,
I'm not
and
either.
I will be seeing it because this story is cool. I want to see how they adapted it. But I'm in no rush.
Yeah.
You
I
know?
was interested enough. I popped it on and I watched maybe 10 minutes of it and then stopped. And I was just, yeah, it's too soon after I read the book because I really liked the images that I had in my head. So,
Right.
yeah, I'll definitely pick it up sometime, but I'm not in a hurry either.
Nice.
Yep, for sure. So let's jump into spoilers.
Let's do it, baby.
All right, man. So yeah, go read the book if you're interested and you don't want to be spoiled. But here we go. Yeah. Another thing I guess I should say is Stephen King thought of this novel a long time ago. I mean, it was even before his first novel, before the release of Carrie in 1974. So he was thinking about this in 1971. And
Right.
then,
Well, what a powerful event it
yeah,
was
no
that
question.
shaped
Yeah,
the country and people's perception of what could happen. No doubt. And yeah, in the afterward there, he wrote that that it was just like too soon for him,
right.
to really approach this and try to fictionalize it and write something with this kind of backdrop. So
Yeah, for sure. And I think he was
I can't
pleased that he
imagine.
waited. He should be because it's a great book.
Right.
So whatever. But yeah, he said it was just too soon. So yeah, time. So the past events can be changed in this book, but he kept saying the past is obdurate, right? The
Right.
past actually throws up obstacles to prevent itself from being changed. So
Right. The
when you're
past
changing
resists change.
yeah, it resists change, which implies to me that there's really one reality in what he's presenting here, and we're veering from that reality, and it gets difficult when that happens.
Yeah, when you
Um,
mess with that, the universe responds at it almost in a survival to protect itself kind of way. It
right.
it felt, and the gravity of the change dictates how how much of a how much of an obstacle you're going to have to go through to affect that change.
Yeah.
So it seems.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so this fellow's name is Jake Epping, right? And he's a teacher. And near the very beginning of the book, he reads an essay written by someone who it's a he's teaching a night class for adults, English.
Yeah,
And
adult GED class or
yeah,
something, right?
yeah. And somebody writes an essay. It's a janitor from a high school, I think. And the
Right.
janitor writes about how his dad attacked his family and this fellow survived it.
And,
And it was an
not just
incredibly
attacked his
touching
family,
essay.
but
Yeah.
killed his entire family with a hammer.
Yeah.
It
Right.
is it is so hardcore.
Hmm.
And I will say that the beginning of this book is very very strong and very fast. You're dropped right into it, and you're dropped into something very heavy with that. And then through the going through that heaviness with Jake Epping, you kind of are immediately aligned with him, and then he's thrown into this story, and you're along for the ride. It goes very very quickly. The first two, three, four chapters.
Yeah. Agreed. Agreed. And then a little while later, Jake is at a local diner, and there's a guy. It's actually called Al's Diner, which
That's
is
right.
a famous diner name. But he talks to this guy Al, who asks him back to the diner, and then when Jake gets there, this guy stumbles out of the back, and he looks way older than he did a minute ago or the day before. And that's where this time travel's happening. He said
Right.
he there's a time portal in this guy's pantry, in the diner's pantry,
Right.
and he just explains that to Jake, and he's I don't know if we know it at that exact moment, but it wasn't long after that we realize that he's ill.
Right. Well, he just lays it on him. That's the thing, is that this diner is, everybody knows about this diner. All the teachers would go there after their day and things like this. And there was a picture of the janitor on the wall that he had taken when he had got his diploma. Everybody was proud. It's small town stuff, And Al, who is a friend, but more, he's an acquaintance / friend to Jake Epping, but he calls him at work, tells him to get out there, and just lays this on him, and tells him straight up, go check it out, and he does. He steps. I love how Stephen King does it. He's really good at doing these kind of interdimensional. He calls them thinnies in a lot of his work, where there's these places where different realities kind of commingle.
Yeah.
So him stepping into the pantry, and then all of a sudden he's kind of stepping downstairs that he can't see but he can feel, and you kind of get this feeling, this kind of weird in between spot, and then he comes on then he's on a solid floor again, and not in the pantry anymore.
Right.
He's in the same place physically, but then he's in 1958.
Right. In 1958, in like a manufacturing plant of some type.
Right.
Yeah. So
and there's a chain keeping people out. It says a pipe's busted. The eternal busted pipe that nobody fixes is walling off this little area, and he's back in 1958, and he has a day of it.
Right. Yeah, so he's got a day of it, and then he comes back, right?
Yeah, and he loves it and everything, and he comes back, and he's like, he's still really, is kind of doesn't know if he believes what just happened or not.
Yeah,
that it's what Al said or not.
Right.
But then Al shows him the notebook. He shows him this.
So now, Al has spent a heck of a lot of time trying to figure out how to prevent the Kennedy assassination. And, he goes back, he observes Lee Harvey Oswald, he's trying to figure all of this stuff out. And now that he is old and sick, he's like, I've got to recruit somebody to do this.
Right.
And he tries to talk Jake Epping into doing it.
Right. Well, yeah, he's very effective at it, too. He lays it out in a very convincing way that to stop this one event would stop a lot of bad that happens in our world as a whole. But I want to point out just at first that when it comes down to him getting cancer, this kind of thing is never fully explained, but it's almost like, well, is that cancer part of this past being obdurate or not?
Right. That's the feeling that I got. It was something preventing him from doing what he was doing.
Right.
Yeah, that's you're right. It was never explicitly said, but that's how I felt about it.
Yeah, it definitely had that feeling, that's for sure. So Jake goes back, and so he doesn't fully believe what's gone on, but there's also that Al told him the story of this girl that he had saved. Now, this girl, he didn't save her life. She was stricken to a wheelchair by being accidentally shot in the woods by a hunter, and Al, in his going back, had saved this girl's life. Or not saved this girl's life, but he saved her from getting shot that day and being stricken to a wheelchair for the rest of her life. So he shows that, or he says that he had done that, but then the picture that he shows Jake shows her in a wheelchair again, and that's when he really drives home the thing of, like, well, when you went through that portal, you reset it. So you reset what I had done.
Hmm.
And so now she's back in the wheelchair. And so whatever you do, that is what it's going to be. And if you come back, whatever you've done is going to be, if you go through again, is going to be, you know, not happened anymore, and you're going to have to redo it, or, you know, choose a different course of action.
To experiment with this, he goes back in time to Derry, Maine, to stop the killing of this guy's family that we've mentioned earlier.
Right, the janitor.
Right, Frank Dunning. Right.
Right. It's a wonderful scene. I mean, it's horrific.
Yeah.
So wonderful with a grain of salt there.
Mhm.
But how he does it, because this really puts you in a, you're in a Stephen King novel. Not only does Derry come back up, and you're in this really weird Derry that is in that in between spot where Pennywise has been overcome by the young kids.
Yeah.
But not yet come back when they're adults. It's right in between in the story.
He sees Beverly and Richie.
Right.
Yep.
Bevy from the levee.
Mm-hmm.
and they're dancing.
Yep.
And they're doing some dancing, and he actually talks to them and sees, and they see him.
Uh-huh.
And of course, there's that Stephen King thing where they kind of have an understanding. Everybody in Derry is very suspicious of each other. There's been a lot of bad things that have happened in Derry. Obviously, a bunch of kids being kids that disappear.
Yeah.
From Pennywise, we know it's Pennywise. It's never laid out in this book, but we know because of it and all that.
That's right.
But Derry is a very scary place, and a very a very suspicious kind of place. But the kids, they see something in Jake that they not only trust him, but they actually give him some good advice, and they send him in the right direction.
Yeah, that's just
say,
fantastic.
Of course, in this, we cannot stress enough how unsuited Jake Epping is for this mission, because even in Derry, in that first time back, he's there to try to feel out everybody, and he's kind of following the guy. What you just said his name?
Dunning, Frank Dunning.
Dunning, right?
Yeah.
And so he's following them, but he's asking people stuff, and he's just not. He's no private investigator. He definitely doesn't know how to keep his head down and stay out of, be incognito and things like that. So when it comes down to him actually trying to stop Frank Dunning, somebody else who he has, kind of brought himself to the attention of as looking for Frank and watching him and stuff like that, shows up to try to stop him. And that night is so horrific. What he goes through, this is the first time Jake goes through. This isn't, he goes through, this is a test run. He's trying to see if he can actually save somebody's life. That's what he wants to test. So he knows that this family, and he goes to this house, and it is a brutal scene, completely brutal.
Yeah, that it was.
And I feel like
this guy's attacking people with a hammer, man.
Oh yeah, and it says a hammer at the beginning, and we're talking about a hammer. But it's a sledgehammer.
Mm-hmm.
Is what he actually has is a sledgehammer. So it's very, very brutal, and just the level of it was very, very high pitch, and I just couldn't,
Yeah.
I definitely took a break after that part, and was just like, okay, he gets hurt pretty bad in the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
He does effectively save the family, except for one of the children, and then he can go back, and then he goes back.
Right.
and he sees if he was able to do it. That was one of the most parts up until the very end, of course, where I think that Stephen King showed the past being completely against what he was doing in the most effective way.
Right. Right. He finds out that the person that he saved, that was a janitor who had been hit with the hammer and is having issues, right?
Right, right.
It was saved, but the result of his life was he went to Vietnam and was killed.
That's right.
Yep.
He died. He died a lot sooner. He died a young death
Mm-hmm.
in the war. And his sister, who is the Lucille Ball,
Mm-hmm.
that's super funny. They called her Little Lucille Ball.
Yeah.
She was like a phone, you know, worker. Just talking on the phone. No, she was part of some radio show or something. Just her voice, and it was all about a projection. And there was that kind of, I want to say, sadness behind her situation as well, because what happened actually is they went through this really traumatic experience, didn't die, but it actually was not, also not a positive to their life.
Right. Right.
Their brother got killed in front of them, things like that, and it's just like, he saved their life, but you don't get a sense that you're like, well, now everything's better. It didn't work out like that.
Right. Yeah. So he's taken all that in, which is, again, showing us that time is resistant. That
Right.
whatever's happened here, it's going to resist some change. And then Al commits suicide. Right. I mean, he's old, he's sick, but he commits
It's a it's
suicide.
it's a lung cancer is what I
Right.
believe it is. He's in a lot of pain
Yeah. He
in that
doesn't
in
have
that
long.
beginning.
Right.
He doesn't have long, and he doesn't, and it's tough for him to keep going,
Yeah.
and he just really wants to uh, know that what he's giving to Jake Epping is something that he's going to move forward with. This is something that Al essentially gave his life for.
Right. And then that makes Jake Epping make a decision. Is like, okay,
Right.
am I going to do this or am I not going to do this? And he decides to do that.
He's going to
So,
do it.
yep, he's
Full
going to
on.
do it full on,
Full
right?
commitment. Not 5 years.
That's
You get
right.
5 years to stop an assassination,
Right.
and change the world. And
And
so
armed
here's our
with
superhero, right?
right. Absolutely. And he's armed with a notebook that's full of notes from Al's previous visits.
Right.
And yeah, so
So
yeah,
he
he
goes
does it.
back through. I want to, and the second time when he goes through, I love how Stephen King does it, because now he doesn't have to do everything that he did before. He doesn't have to research. He doesn't have to get into dairy and all this figuring stuff out, because he knows it all already, right?
Right. And remember,
And
this
he's
is not a time situation where he's seeing himself do the things he did last time, right? It completely resets.
right. It's
So,
completely reset. Nobody
yep.
knows him. Nobody's ever
Hmm.
heard of him. He knows. He buys the same car. He knows what car he wants, and he sets himself up the second time through, but he doesn't get into anything, and he actually waits at a place where he knows where Frank Dunning is going to go and pay respects to his dead parents at a cemetery, and he just waits there and kills him. So now in this timeline, that somebody just murdered their father, the family. And they don't know who, they don't know. It's an unsolved crime,
Hmm.
and their dad was just murdered,
Right.
and that's it. Well, and nobody knows what would have happened other than that, except for our boy Jake. So there's that kind of dichotomy where you're like, well, Jake's a murderer now, and now he's not a murderer in cold blood.
Uh-huh.
It's not like that, but he is a murderer.
Yeah,
and
yeah. It
and
gets tough, doesn't it? It's like, is it self defense? Yeah,
right. Well,
right.
in this timeline, it wasn't anything. This guy shows up to pay respects to his parents that had died and get shot and then dragged into the mausoleum and left there, and then that's it. And then
Wow.
Jake is off to Texas.
That what just popped in my
No,
mind was
he's off to Florida
that's right,
first.
that's right. What just popped in my mind was Minority Report by Philip K. Dick.
Right,
Preventing crime by predicting it and arresting the person that's going to do it.
right.
You know.
And in there they actually imprison and incapacitate somebody in a futuristic way, but it would be imprisonment. Uh, would it be justified to kill somebody to stop them from doing it?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
see what I'm saying?
I do. Yeah, and it's
That's
kind
the
of the
thing.
same kind of thing, but yeah, you're just like, man. Well, I've seen this movie, and I know that he's going to kill his family. Yeah,
Right,
just it's a tough deal. And now now he's got the bigger one where it's like JFK, Lee Harvey Oswald.
right.
But you left him in Florida. What's he doing in Florida?
Well, he gets like a beach house. He knows he's got to waste time. He's got all these years. He's got 5 years to go. So he wastes a lot of time. But he makes a bet with a bookie that is a big bet that he shouldn't have necessarily
Yeah,
pushed.
it was
But
something like Yankees in 7, after falling behind by 3. It was something outrageous that actually happened, but no one could ever predict.
right,
Yep.
and he does, and he gets 5-1 odds on it or something, and
Hmm.
plates and makes a big bet.
Hmm.
So this, then he's marked. Like he just people know him, and so that's why I say again.
Yeah, that goes right to what you were saying about him being unfit for this because he's not doing it right. He's like,
Right,
you can do this in a way that you won't be noticed, but instead he's doing it in a
right,
way that gets him noticed.
exactly right. I
Mm,
mean, why not bet you know uh, 100 or 1,000 small times and make your money
yeah, right.
rather than one big payoff? Or because essentially what he does is he has a book that's like Back to the Future 2, Biff. He's got an almanac. He's got a book that tells him all the sports
Yep, yep.
outcomes for the last you know for the last 30, 40 years or something like that. So he's got a book that tells him all that kind of stuff, and he takes it back just to have this money making when he needs it. um and then but see, along with this kind of thing where Stephen King plays all these cards. There's the gambling and the kind of getting caught up in the fun of that, and making a big bet and having a payoff and all that kind of stuff. But then there's also like the intuition where he just felt something, and he's like, okay, my time is up here, and that's when he goes to Texas.
Yeah.
And it turns out, later on, he hears. I guess he makes a call or something, and there's some information that gets back to him where his Florida beach house was burned to the ground like the week after he left, and he
Mm,
knows that it was the bookies that did that. That there was this kind of feeling of that he had screwed them in some kind of way.
right.
So Stephen King plays all these things, and very, very perceptive, very cool to just be able to it what it does is it builds a very human experience where a lot of things are going on, and you see that you're not going to keep all this together. He would have to be trained to be a private eye, or this kind of spy kind of person. Somebody, he would have to be trained to be able to pull this off well.
Right,
And
right.
he's not. He's an English teacher.
Yep.
So we're watching an English teacher bumble through trying to do this kind of thing.
Yeah,
So
absolutely right.
uh,
While the universe is pushing against him.
right,
Same deal. So So yeah, so now he's in Texas, and Dallas, Texas is where he's got to be to learn about Lee Harvey Oswald and what he's doing. And one of the problems that he's got is that he doesn't know for sure that Lee Harvey Oswald is the only guy that was
Right.
involved. So he can't just find Lee Harvey Oswald and kill him. He's
Right.
got to wait until the moment. And it's like he said that during the book where it's like he's got to fiercely defend the status quo. I mean, he says something like that. I've got to fiercely defend everything that's supposed to happen so that he'll be where I need him to be
Right.
when I
Well,
know that he'll
it's
be there,
staying.
right?
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
staying out of his path
Hmm.
and not letting him, not affecting him in any kind of way, so that everything that's in Al's notebooks stays true.
And then at the same time, he himself goes to a small town in Texas and lives a life, falls in love,
Oh,
and
oh
is
now
as entwined with that small town as a person
that's
could
right.
be. You
That's
know,
right.
you know.
And so what it is there's this Al has in his notebooks. There's this one incident that happens that Al is pretty much convinced that Lee Harvey Oswald is the one who takes this shot at a general and tries to assassinate him, but misses. It's a happening. I don't know if it's a historical fact. I wouldn't doubt if it is, because this is where Stephen King obviously did a lot of research for this book. Lee Harvey Oswald feels like Lee Harvey Oswald. You really get a sense of this kind of inadequate, um, riling against the world kind of person. But he's there and he gets these bugs and he bugs these lamps, and he's actually he's living across the street from Lee Harvey at some points, and he's living underneath the apartment of Lee Harvey at another point. And but what he's doing is he's just at this point, this is a major big middle part of the book, and this is where we really, where Stephen King goes right into characters, into character development. We see our boy fall in love. Shouldn't be doing that. You're here on a mission. You're here on a mission, brother.
Yeah.
But you can't choose who you fall in love with or when it happens, right?
Absolutely, and I think this is one of the probably best love stories I've ever read Stephen King write.
Oh yeah.
It's
Oh
very
yeah.
real. Characters
For
are
sure.
human. I mean, it's really good.
I'm definitely on board with that, brother.
Hmm.
It's just you cheer for them, you hurt with them, you're really just there with them. They're both teachers. She's a transplant from Georgia, baby,
Mm.
from right where I'm at. She's from Georgia, but she's a transplant from there. She moves to this small town in Texas, outside of Dallas, and she's a librarian, a school librarian, and he's on the payroll as an English teacher, and he ends up, they put on this play. They do Of Mice and Men, right?
Yep. Yep.
And they're going to football games and they're falling in love, and they're learning about each other's past. Well, he's learning about her past,
Yeah. That's
and
funny. That's another echo from Salem's Lot. In Salem's Lot, Ben Mears' old teacher was directing a play that those kids were in. Anyway, it just popped in my head as another shade or
right,
shadow or echo, right? An
right,
echo,
right.
they keep saying in in this book here, echoes,
Yeah, a harmony, a
harmonies,
harmony.
right? Hmm.
That's what it is. He's characterizing it as harmonies.
Uh-huh.
When he sees something and that he's seen before, and
Yeah,
Sadie, he starts seeing that she looks like uh, Dunning's wife
right.
and things like that. Just weird
Yeah, just weird,
harmonies,
strange harmonies, right?
and you
And
just don't know
this is
where
something
they're
that
pushing you.
I wanted to ask you about, because I know that
Yeah,
you've read the Dark Tower series and I have not.
right.
Are these concepts of the harmonies, and we haven't talked about the Yellow Card Man, but are these ideas existing in Dark Tower?
No,
Okay.
I don't think so.
Mm-hmm.
The only kind of parallel, or the only kind of harmony I saw with the Dark Tower was that, okay, so Sadie is actually, she's left her husband, and she's not divorced, but she's left him, and he was a real Puritan kind of, not affectionate, not at all looking to build a family or anything like that, or even have sex with her.
Mm-hmm.
She was a virgin. She's a virgin when our boy Jake meets her, even though she's been married for years. Things like that. It's just a real messed up kind of relationship that they had. And Jake sees, and that's one of the harmonies. He's like, hey, you need to look out for this guy because he's going to show up one day. I have a feeling, and the feeling is one of those kind of harmonies. The Dunning catastrophe. And it's just this kind of thing where he has a feeling that he's going to show up one day. Well, he does. What it is, and his car is a Plymouth station wagon, right? And he keeps saying that it's white over red.
Yeah.
That it's white on the top and red on the bottom, and that is Stephen King. That's worked out really well in the final book of the Dark Tower. That white is Stephen King's kind of symbol of good as far as the color is concerned, and red is the evil, the Crimson King.
Mm-hmm.
And in a lot of his works, white over red is what is symbolizing that struggle. When you see white and red together, then what you're looking at is where the everything's going to come to a head.
I'm
So
reminded of the cover for Insomnia.
exactly right.
Yeah.
Exactly
That is
right.
related.
Yep.
Huh? Interesting.
It is related for sure.
Cool.
It's called out as that, and so it's an amazing thing that he's doing there. But so Jake Epping is living like a double life, and he shouldn't be doing that. I mean, like what he should be doing is focusing on his directive, his mission. But now he's living this double life where he's thinking about, building a world with this woman and never going back to the present and all that kind of stuff. And then he's essentially sneaking away, not telling her what he's doing. He says he's going to research for his book. She knows it's a lie, and he's following Oswald, and he's trying to figure this out. And when Oswald, when the shot is taken on that general and misses, it's unconclusive.
Mm-hmm.
The evidence, what he hears on the tape and everything, it still doesn't let him know for sure if Oswald acted alone and took the shot on that general or not. And so it's inconclusive. And when it comes down to it, then our boy Jake has to continue to just watch Oswald. He can't engage. He can't take, because it's not fully known whether or not Oswald acted alone in the JFK assassination.
Right,
yet.
and he's got to watch him all the way to 1963.
Right, and
all
then
the way to November 22nd.
Yeah, right. So he has this horrible, horrible luck with that. Maybe that's part of the past being obdurate as well, because it's the kind of thing where the bug doesn't pick up the conversation well and things like that. For some, just weird reasons, it doesn't give him the information that he needs.
Right.
And then Sadie's husband shows back up, and in another horrifying evening, he essentially commits suicide, but not before he brutally disfigures Sadie beyond repair.
Mm-hmm.
Disfigures her face beyond repair. It's very gruesome. And now our boy Jake starts thinking about taking her to the future with him. It's just not the move. All of these things,
mm-hmm.
it's never the move.
Yeah.
And I was just riling when I'm reading that, all these
Right.
kind of parts. I'm like, dude, stop! Like, stop messing with these people. Just cut your losses.
I mean that it he made me feel right there with him. I understood his motivation and what he was thinking, and I wanted her to be okay.
Right,
You know.
right, and definitely, he was already full on committed and in love, and now he's looking for a way. He's like, well, if I tell her, and if we go forward, and I do what I got to do with 11/22/63. After that, I'll bring her to the future with me, where they can repair this damage, this
Yeah.
disfigurement, and so give it 60 years of advancement. So
Yeah, right. So yeah, it's fascinating, all everything that he does all the way leading right up to that day, the day of the JFK assassination. There is a lot of historical information that is sprinkled in there that I don't remember Stephen King doing before, maybe in just bits and pieces. But I actually learned some things about Dallas, Texas, and basically the United States at that time,
right,
that he
and
was
yeah,
talking
me too.
about, and how difficult some people found it to have John F. Kennedy be the president.
Right.
Yeah, and I even looked up,
Oh
the
yeah,
presidential election.
especially in Texas.
Yeah, especially in Texas, and I looked up that presidential election, and man, was it close. So it's just kind of a, again, echoes, harmonies, and he wrote this back in 2011, so he wasn't. It felt like, if he had written this in the last 4 years, it would have felt like he was responding to the political situation today, but he wrote it in before 2011. I mean, it was published in 2011, so it's remarkable in that way. It's definitely a book for this time.
Right, and I think it's a testament also to the fact that, as much as people, wanna say things are different. Oh well, things are different now. Things are different now. There's always a lot of work to do.
Yeah, no question, no question.
Right?
And yeah, I mean, the 1960s were brutal. Um,
Brutal.
yeah, just politics. I mean, look at the assassinations that happened in the 1960s. I mean, just devastating.
Right.
So,
But
but
and
yeah,
everything was so polarized.
right, absolutely. And so yeah, so now I mean we're getting right up on it, So November the 22nd, 1963, right?
Almost.
Yeah. So
Because what
go ahead.
what goes on here is like Sadie's disfigurement and all the medical bills and stuff is piled up so much that
Oh,
Jake thinks he needs to go make another big bet.
and a ridiculous one too.
And a ridiculous bet, and he goes to a guy who is a cousin, and he knows it, of the bookie that already had problems with him
Right.
in Florida, and he still just goes through with this bet. I mean, I saw it coming from a mile away. I can't believe that.
And why didn't he? It was like I kind of
Why
felt
didn't he?
like he kind of did, right? It was like I'm
I think he
ignoring
did
this
too.
now.
Right. It's almost like, hey, I'm just doing what I got to do, and you resign yourself to what you got to do.
Yeah.
I kind of got this kind of feeling of him just saying, well, it's not going to kill me, so I'm going to do this, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
But I mean, he is, long story short, he makes this ridiculous bet, and not just that, he makes a ridiculous bet, and he tells Sadie all about it, and he uses this as a way to convince her and show her that he actually is from the future. He actually is on this mission, and he convinces her, and she now knows, and not just her, but also another teacher, the PE teacher. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Or the
Yep.
coach?
Right.
Is that right? The
I think
coach
so.
from
Yep.
they both know that he's from the future. He's already said way too much stuff that they're now convinced that, like, if he's not from the future, then something's going on where he can tell the future or whatever it is. But he's not your normal person. and then he gets brutally beaten to the point where he almost dies. It was so brutal, man.
Mm.
There's so much brutal, and you say there's no horror in this book, and I would say I would concur with the way that Stephen King usually does horror. But there is horror in this book in a way of, if you can't take brutal violence, 3-on-1, unfair, brutal violence.
Yeah, there was
Then
three
that
incidents in this book, right?
right,
Three
of
incidents.
just complete brutal, gory and hard to stomach violence. It's that's one of the things. I think I had said it even in one of our maybe on the in our talking about it and stuff. But that's the kind of thing that gets me more than anything. That where my heart just drops when I see, even in a movie, a depiction of somebody just getting, in an unfair match, just getting beat, and to the point that they might die. They're maybe just begging for it to stop. There's no defense, this kind of thing, and it really, really gets me, and that was really, really tough. So, there it is.
Yeah, I hear you.
Mm.
Yeah, for sure.
So he's in that. That's our setup. He's in a place where he's in recovery, and his leg is completely busted in a big way, and he's still in recovery from that incident with Sadie, who is she's recovered, but she's gone through a couple of surgeries, and then we're coming up on the date 11/22/63.
Mm-hmm.
He is not in a place to be really, going at this guy and going for this.
Yeah, and
Stephen King does
again,
that
at this
very
point,
well.
and at this point, I was realizing that all of this stuff was the universe protecting itself
Right.
from this
Exactly.
horrible event. Right? It was like, this needs to happen.
Right.
Yeah, and these are things that are occurring to prevent Jake from doing what he's trying to do.
Right.
Which is amazing.
Is Sadie's husband there because of Jake?
Yeah.
Yes. In more ways than one, because he has a relationship with Sadie, and it might be a jealousy kind of thing, but then it also might be the universe.
Yeah.
Are these bookies, they're beating the hell out of him because of what? Well, it's because he's making bad decisions and doing what he's doing, but also that he's there and the universe is right up against him.
Mm-hmm.
It's wild.
It is wild.
Yeah.
It's very, very interesting.
Where the hero is like the hero is hurt. Where the hero has something that happens to him that is an affliction that he has to overcome at a crucial moment. Stephen King does that in a lot of his works.
Oh yeah. Yep. So yeah, all the things that he had to go through up to that point, and then just getting to the building was brutally difficult to get to the depository at the right time. He gets there just exactly at the right time.
Yeah, what was it, like 2 car accidents? It was like a bus accident, a car accident first, and then a bus accident. Then they steal a car, and that car is like on its last leg, and it breaks down, a couple of miles before they get where they need to go.
And then what happens is, he gets there in the book depository. He manages to stop Oswald from shooting, but instead Oswald shoots at Jake, but misses Jake and hits Sadie.
That's right.
Yeah, horrible.
Right. It's horrible, and it's such a high pitch scene as well. That's where it definitely is just thing after thing thrown at. Because Jake and Sadie are together, because Jake couldn't do this on his own at this point.
Right.
And just so much obstacle in their way, and they just keep going at it, and you just see them both just saying, we're gonna do this even if it kills us,
Mm-hmm.
and it might. And so they go there, and it was heartbreaking because Jake, effectively uh, stops the assassination, but loses the love of his life at that
Right.
point.
And not only does he lose Sadie, but something's gone screwed up with the universe. I
Right?
can't remember. Does he know before he steps back to modern times? Does he know? Did they? Was there
Yeah.
an
Well,
earthquake before that?
right. Right.
Okay,
Yes.
that's
So
okay.
there.
I dimly remember that. So there's a huge earthquake in L.A. that kills just, I mean, hundreds of thousands of people. Right? Huge
Right.
earthquake in L.A. and he knows that didn't happen. So he's
Right.
like, gosh, did I cause that? How could I have
Right.
caused an earthquake? But did I? Right. So then he goes back into the present, or off to the
Right.
future, or whatever, and realizes, some of this is a wasteland. I mean, there's something is horribly wrong,
Oh,
and
it's
he
gone.
ends
It's gone all to hell. Then,
right.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
there's been like a nuclear holocaust or something. There is. It's all wrong. I mean, everybody is has radiation poisoning,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just there's society is at a very low level. It's like a mix between a mutants walking the streets and A Clockwork Orange,
Yeah. Yeah.
where these like roving bands of gangs that just are fighting to fight or to get what little canned goods or something they can get, because there's not even infrastructure anymore. There's not even
Yeah. For sure.
grocery stores and things like that.
Yep.
It's
Agreed.
really, really bad.
It is bad.
And he meets up with you remember he meets up with the janitor.
Uh huh. Right. And the
That's who he meets up
janitor,
with.
yeah, he tells him everything that's happened.
Yeah,
Yep.
and how horrible everything is.
Yeah.
And that's when he decides he's going to go. Well, he already had decided he's going to go back, because what he's going to do is he wants to be with Sadie.
Yeah.
So he had already decided he's going to go back, and he's going to stop, Sadie from dying and all this kind of thing, and stop JFK again, or whatever it might take. But then he starts seeing that that this thing is way bigger than anything that he can wrap his head around.
Yeah, and this was really interesting stuff. I mean, he's talking to the yellow card man, right? But there's
Right.
somebody there
Well,
with a
now he's
green
the green
card.
card man.
Yeah, and really, it's like, again, in my opinion, my interpretation of what's being said is that there is one reality, and when they go back and they change stuff, those agents have to keep all the realities in their head somehow. And there are these strings that they kind of have to rearrange. I mean, something like
Yeah,
that, where
yeah,
there's physical things happening to the universe that seem to be bypassing what was real, or who knows what. And yeah, it's just messed up. It's just messed
yeah.
up. And so,
And that's it drives home. Yeah, the conversation with the green card man at the end really gives you the kind of idea that uh, any of these changes, especially big ones, are all negative.
uh,
They're all negative.
yeah,
In the big scheme, in the big picture of things, that you know, hu- human beings die. Human beings go through hardships. Some of them live a life in a wheelchair. Some of them, they have hard lives.
hmm,
But to change something from whatever this is, the natural course of events is going to be all negative. And he starts to see that, and and then he goes back, right?
right, right,
he goes
hmm,
back, and that's when he talks to the green card man there,
uh-huh,
and when he goes back, and when he's like, and because this guy is like a gatekeeper,
hmm,
he doesn't have any power. What he kind of does is, like you said, he's there to kind of, I guess, through a mental through a mental thing, he's at least trying to hold the universe together by uh, by lending a human consciousness to knowing what's happening instead of just the person that's making the changes.
Right, right.
It's
Yeah,
really strange.
it really is strange, and that's what made me think it was connected to Dark Tower somehow. Um, that strangeness, which I think exists in Dark Tower, even if it's not this strangeness. There's something about. I think you were saying in Dark Tower, it's like there are places where all the stories are, or something like that. Like everything.
Well,
It.
see, the Dark Tower, how it's set up
Mm-hmm.
is that the Dark Tower has all these different levels on it, and it's almost like the kind of things we've got into with Borges, where one thing, or like the Dark Tower, what it is the entire universe.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a thing that's in the world that is actually a representation of the entire universe. So it's a symbol, but it is a physical thing. And the Dark Tower in Roland's world might be a flower in a vacant parking lot in our world,
Hmm.
and might be a tiger in a different world. And that's the kind of thing, is like it doesn't have to be a tower, but that's what it is in the Dark Tower series.
Interesting.
And on
Mm-hmm.
each level of that tower is an alternate reality, is another dimension. Well, these dimensions, these realities are all fictional universes as well as real universes and things like that. So Roland's universe, the Dark Tower series, Roland is our main character. His universe is one of these levels, and our world is one of these levels as well, a different one.
Mm-hmm.
But they kind of interact, right? Because we have Roland's world in our world by being in the books, and we can experience that. And Roland kind of bleeds over into our world as well. And there's that kind of thing, and Stephen King plays with that to very dramatic effect in Dark Tower series. It's awesome. There is those kind of things, but as far as like the actual mechanism of the strings and time travel, it's not necessarily. I don't see
Okay.
an analog, but there is time travel in the Dark Tower series as
Hmm.
well.
Cool. Okay.
A different mechanism
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
for it.
Right.
Very,
So
very,
yeah, very
very
very cool.
interesting.
So yeah, so Jake actually does make the decision to go back and put
Right.
everything right because the world's wrong, right? So he does go
Well,
back.
and
It
what
resets.
and yeah, and he's kicking around the idea of going to
Mm-hmm.
do this or that. Do I
Right,
save the
and there's
Dunning?
somebody there. One of the card men. I can't remember what color his card was at this point, but he's
Yeah, I
telling
think it was
Jake,
green
man,
at the end.
yeah, you've got to go back to the
Yeah,
to the
just
regular
go back.
time. Just go back, and it'll be fixed. But
Right,
Jake, even then, is like, gosh, I just want to go see Sadie.
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's deathly scared of changing anything.
Uh huh.
He's deathly scared of doing anything because he sees what a mess the world has become because of what he's done.
Yeah.
But he's in love, and he loves this woman, and so he actually does go back, and he
He
just
does.
goes back,
Yep.
um, and then he drives. Then he drives to Texas and sees Sadie, and she is an old woman, and he is not as old, but older than he would be if he didn't spend 5 years in the past.
Uh huh. Yep.
But he goes to her and he sees her, and he research well, this kind of thing we're glossing over it. There's a whole lot to this. Stephen King does a very, very great job of hashing out all these characters, and
Mm.
the way that Jake wants to find out about her, but he doesn't want to cause any problems. And so he actually sees that she had this great career as a teacher. Now she was an activist. She was, there was pushes for her to actually be, run for public office or something.
Yeah.
But she
Yeah.
she decided not to and just stay in the community building kind of capacity. And he goes to the dance at the high school where
Yeah. Some
she's at.
celebration for her, right?
Yeah, and she's an older woman, older than him by quite a bit.
Uh-huh.
But then they share they share a dance, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful ending. And what I love what he says, because he said, "Oh, she goes because he knows too much." He's saying all these things, and he's getting her to dance, and she's like, "I used to dance this dance," and he's like, "Yeah, I know you did, you know." And she's like, "Well, who are you? Like, do you know who I am? Who are you?" And he's like, "Yeah, I knew you in another life."
Mm-hmm.
And it's just so beautiful,
Yeah.
this kind of thing of sharing these moments, and this is what we're seeing Jake's life, and Jake's life is completely uh, different than every other person's life that's ever lived
Yeah.
because of his unique position, and you still feel like that there's something worth it there.
Mm-hmm. Right. Absolutely right. Yeah. And it's beautiful. Um, it really is. I mean, it's just stunning, how he ended it.
The
And
end was pretty beautiful, and
mhm.
I think it's great how you know essentially he didn't change anything.
Uh-huh.
He didn't even save the boy's
Mm.
family.
Right.
No, he didn't. At the end of it, he didn't do anything
Yeah.
because our world is already on its best course possible. It's up to us every moment, every day,
Mm.
to try to make the kind of world that we want. And if we don't get it right the first time, well, more opportunities will arise. You can't go back. You can't change things. People mess up. People make mistakes. Bad things happen, and that's just life.
Right.
It's a real tale of acceptance.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. Yep. And you're right. Yep. Definitely. Wow.
Sobering.
Yeah.
It really is a
It
sobering
is a sobering
kind of
thing.
thing.
I do like
Mm-hmm.
the fact, that there's, one reality. I like that. I like that more than, the myriad of stories where there's just multiple universes. Every time you make a decision, it
Mm-hmm.
branches. Um,
Right.
I don't personally believe that.
Right.
Um, but yeah, so I thought this was a pretty satisfying and not very typical.
Right. We
Hmm.
and we do want to say, with all the accolades and saying how great uh, that the ending is great and that is very satisfying and all that kind of thing, that we can thank Joe Hill for that one.
That's right. That's right. Way to go, Joe. Yep.
Way to go, Joe.
Yep.
Stephen King, I'm sure thanks you
Uh-huh.
very much as well.
That's for sure. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. What a good one.
Very good.
Man.
Scott, thank you very
Hey,
much
thank
for
you very much.
doing another read through with me, man. It's always
Yeah.
great to read with you, brother.
Oh, you too, man. I just enjoyed the heck out of this. So we must do
And with
another
it
one
being so
sometime.
big, we really crushed it.
We did.
With it being so, 850
Yeah.
pages.
Pretty
Awesome.
quick read. Pretty quick read, nonetheless. It was
Right.
riveting. The entire thing was riveting. It
It
just,
really is.
yeah, it was just like, man, I was always looking to get
So
back
many
to it.
weird, strange things happen that you're just like, well, what does that mean? When the yellow card man is calling him Jim Law,
Uh,
and then in the stadium, years later, and as he's having his relationship with Sadie, and they're in the football stadium, they're chanting Jim Law, Jim Law, Jim Law, and it's
hmm.
like, what does that mean? What does
Yeah.
that even mean? And why would this guy even know that?
Hmm.
But
Right. Right.
it's just there's so many cool, interesting things about it to keep you just going. I'm glad I read it.
Yeah. Me too. Very glad I read it. Well done, Stephen King. Still at it. Love
That's
it.
right.
Very good. All right. Well, thanks again, Noah, and we'll see everyone else next time.
You got it, Scott.
Okay.
Thank you very much, brother.